or as authentic as what it feels like we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
It was always more of a superficial kind of joining. So it's, I don't think that it is that. I don't think that it was always more of a superficial kind of yeah, I don't think it was. So what I'm missing is not necessarily the conversation. I think it's more the contact with people, being in, because we all have this exciting energy about us that is this just palpable and connective. And so without going into a church service or into a happy hour or all of those things, it just seems like there's a big gaping hole
Mm-hmm.
in my in how I perceive myself, I guess now, because I am such a social person.
Mm-hmm.
Such a social person. So I'm really thinking about that and what that looks like, what I need going forward. And I don't know if that means that I'm going to go someplace and volunteer, which is, what I have done, or what that's going to look like. But
I've been thinking about volunteering too. That has been on my mind because I really want to go dancing, but it's just I'm not comfortable with that yet. So if I do something purposeful, it's so weird, but my mind has been like, oh, maybe I'll volunteer somewhere.
Yeah. Though, I used to always want to do a weekly day party for for people who don't want to necessarily dance late at night, but who want to still dance. So having a day party is like having a DJ at 4 or 5 o'clock where we could just go out and drop it like we wish it was hot.
It's hot over here, Sandra.
But there has, so yeah, I look, I got some hotness. However, it ain't like it used to be. Like it used to be.
Yeah, so I just been asking the universe to, connect me with like a dance partner that like enjoys dancing. I've been practicing modern dancing, but like a dance. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I love like the Detroit two-step, the ballroom dancing, Detroit ballroom. I love that dance. But I just, this is not new. This is pre-COVID. I would much rather have a coach or a partner that would teach me privately than to be amongst the crowd. And and so I just haven't done anything else with it because of COVID. I was going, I had a gentleman, it was in Shaker Heights, that was really a really good teacher. But then COVID hit and then the place closed down. And so I can't, reach that person again. And then, so anyway, I'm just that is what I've been asking life for, because I love that, but I don't want to go out I went out in November with my cousin to a dance place, and I had a couple of dances. We danced with our mask on. It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to just keep it up. And a lot of places are crowded to me.
Yeah, I don't particularly care. Well, I don't want to say it like that. I'm not a ballroom dancer.
Yeah.
I'm a think I could drop it like it's hot. I'm a shake a tail feather kind of girl.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that one where I feel like I've been restrained and let me just So I get what you're saying though, because I used to go to a spot used to be called Capers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would literally walk in the door. And if I had to rest my coat, I would throw it on the back of some chair and walk straight to the dance floor. And I danced until my clothes were soaked. And then I walked straight back out the door. I wasn't interested in having conversation with people, although I always ran into people that I knew.
Right.
But I really wasn't interested in going in there to, to chat it up or something with some person. I was
Right.
just interested in dancing.
That's me.
So, but if you need somebody to find somebody for you, if you're looking, put it out there. I mean, who don't we know?
I don't know a lot of people here, but
Well,
back home, I mean, Kansas, I
yeah,
got the hookup, but I'm here
yeah,
now. So it's just
yeah,
and and COVID hit like boom. And so it just kind of slowed the process down, but it is as it should be. But I'm just saying that I'm with you because I'm feeling that. I mean, I'm taking up private modern dancing because I want to move my body. I want to move it, you know,
yeah.
with form and stuff. So I just love moving this body, and I love like um choreographed movement.
Okay.
So I just decided, well, I can do that because I could find a private teacher there. So
Uh-huh. Now,
doing
do you do that at the same studio where your yoga is?
hmm Yes. Yeah. And I'm over at the yoga lab now for yoga with Judge Dawson's yoga lab in Cleveland
Really?
Heights. Yeah. So I go there now. I love that place.
Now, Will and I used to be when before he became a judge or an attorney, we used to be on the same radio station together. So
Oh, okay.
way back. That's do I want to say 20, 30 years back?
Okay.
Yeah, back in the late 80s. And I saw him when I went to the yoga summit. I saw him, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him because by the time I realized it was him, I was already out. So
Oh, okay. The one in Cleveland Heights that day. Is that
uh,
what you're talking about?
they had one up at the Shaker, right outside of the Shaker Library.
Yeah. Oh, I remember you told me about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a all day yoga summit. So yeah, well, good.
Love that place. And it's amazing. Anybody wants to go there. They got yoga going on, feel like 24 hours.
Now,
Somebody
where is
teaches
this at?
something.
It's in Cleveland
Same
Heights.
thing. Cleveland Heights, right across the street from Jessica's place. So every time I go every week, I think about her. It's right in that shopping plaza where Dave's grocery store is.
Uh-huh. It's interesting because I woke up the other night hearing Jessica's laugh.
Mm.
And yeah, I heard her laughing. It was just so present and so real. And I just whispered, I was like, I miss you. I miss you, Jessica. Yeah. So yeah, just anyway.
Yeah.
So, good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Tail feather. Oh, and I do dance around the house a lot.
Me too.
Yeah, whether it is shake a tail feather or some other funky stuff, I put on tell the device to play different songs. I actually have playlists of dancing stuff that I love to dance to. So whether we getting hot in here, taking off all our clothes or whatever the case may be, I still get my dance on, and I enjoy that. So yeah, it's nice to dance with other people too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
just that energy exchange. But I have a whole philosophy on that too. That I feel like the intention is for us to become depleted in our energy vibe. And so I think we do have to remain intentional about it. And I think it's important that when we do get with people, we try to connect in a high vibe place, because
Yes.
we have to get filled up. It's necessary, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And
And and yes, just that's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. I mean, there's so many thoughts that just kind of hit my mind, just based on what you said, just being more intentional about even the connections that we do have. So yes, 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 yes. Anyway, oh, so many thoughts, so many thoughts, so many thoughts. Let me stay purposeful
no.
and intentional. Because I every once in a while I make sure that I want to say that we are working out of It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin. And this book is sometimes we look at books or we pick up books and we don't always know how pivotal they are going to be for us.
Right.
The ways in which they can just change how we see ourselves and how we engage in things together. Sometimes it's like, whether it is the way that it's formatted or the approach to things, we don't always know. And so this is an interesting time for me in my life because, back when I first started talking about epigenetics, it wasn't as personal for me. It was kind of over here. And then as I started reading the book, it brought it like front and center for me to really look at the things that are in my life, and to the degree that you allow yourself to delve in, to not be numb or not disregard things, because we can do that so quickly. Like,
It's so automatic. It's like scratching an itch. It's like that. It's just so you look away so fast. And when you are helping people, you can feel the shift. Like, no, let's not go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we and you guys will recognize that we do this in church too. Like the first time that we hear something, it'll be like, ooh, Sandra should be here to hear this. Like, this is right. This we always making
this is a message for her.
Right? we are so quick to do that. It's like somebody else's stuff. It's not ours. Oh no, right? Whether we sitting there with, that's one of the things that at Vipassana they said when we were talking about the stuff. The man says, yeah, I can tell you to do body scans, and here you are sitting doing body scans and saying, but I don't feel anything, right? He says, and we're busy touching ourselves all over the place, talking about we don't feel anything. Right. And so it's like we've got to be more intentional about, like, like even in the story of Cinderella, when he went looking for Cinderella, he had those people actually try to put your foot in the shoe. Right. And if it doesn't fit, we're going to take it off. Or if it don't fit, we're not going to force it. But you actually need to try it.
Right.
And so that's what we don't do a lot of times. We just disregard it. And, a lot of times we've been told, you can lead a horse to the water.
Ain't make them drink it.
Ain't make them drink it. So we could talk all day about this stuff, but until you actually try it for yourself, it's just us looking like we just haven't.
And even if you don't try it, consider it. Is it possible? And the answer is yes. It's always possible that this could be for you.
Yesterday, I had such an epiphany yesterday. I had such an epiphany. So in full disclosure, because y'all know I tell my business. You know, I was I was born into a family, right? I didn't create it.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes this thing of, a lot of times what people do is they get caught up in the shame of stuff as if it is their doing, and it's really not. You are living in a particular lineage, right? And sometimes you live in that lineage on purpose, because you are the one that is made to heal us.
Right.
So yesterday when we were talking, for me, what came up was, I had, my mother, I never start off with the story where I'm trying to tell the story. So my mother was an only child. She did not know her father. She left Mississippi. She had met my father, right? But she left Mississippi and went to California, because she was like, I'm not spending my life on no dirt road for the rest of my life. I'm going to live my life. And so my mother, she had this flossy stage where she was, she was just flossy, like I perceive myself to be sometimes. Anyway, she left and went to California. My father went out to California to get her, because it was like one of those things, like, I'm gonna grab this woman by the hair and pull her back someplace, because this is who I want to be with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he followed her out to California, and they got married in California. So instead, she was like, I'm not going back to Mississippi. You are not taking me back to Mississippi. That's how they ended up in Ohio.
Mm.
Because her stepfather and her mother came to Ohio to work. And so when they found work, then my parents ended up coming here, moving here.
Oh.
I could have been living in California, right? But anyway, I wonder how different life
Wasn't it in the stars, girl?
is.
It had to get in alignment. The
But
plan.
yes. So yeah, I had to meet you. So
Yep. High five.
right. So they came here, they moved to Cleveland, and so that was how it got started. But now so I'm backtracking it just a bit. My father's mother was killed, as I said yesterday, because she was walking at night trying to get home in the back roads of Mississippi, in a country road where they didn't have lights and all that stuff. She was hit on the side of the road and it killed her. Now, why was she out walking? Now, my grandfather had acres of land. When we talk about, when they divided it up between 9 kids, they still had, like, how do I want to say it, about 10 acres apiece. So he had a huge farm. Anyway, so but my grandfather was a very light skinned man who was very attractive, right? Pretty boy. And my dad would talk about how whorish his own father was, to the extent of, and y'all, this, like I said, I was born into this family. It's all good. Right? But this helps you to understand that aspect of the family trauma that I'm talking about. My father said that they went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, which was common. right? And that's not unusual. It was a one-room schoolhouse. And he said that there were kids in the classroom that looked more like his father than him and his sisters and brothers. So his father was a farmer who planted seeds everywhere. So the narrative is that if my grandfather was any kind of guy, he would have went and picked up their mama and not been out with some woman doing whatever he was doing, planting seeds. So there was that's not to say that I detected anger, but there was always a distancing. And I'll tell you, because every year that my dad, that we were kids, we all packed into a station wagon and went to Mississippi. So it wasn't a thing of what we gonna do for our summer vacation, or whether or not we were gonna go. It was a pilgrimage that we did every single year. But what I also found ironic is that my grandfather had all these dogs, because he also hunted. So he had a whole bunch of dogs that were always around the house. And you said, what's the dog's name? Dog. Well, how do you call them? You could say dog. You whistle, come here, dog. And it would be like one of them would come. And I said, well, how do they know which one is which if you name them all dog? It's kind of like George Foreman, right? How do they know which one they are if you just call them all dog? He was like, they know. Oh, okay. Which was kind of crazy to me, right? Like, what is that? And what is that about not giving them a name? It just kind of makes it seem like just so indiscriminately, yes, detached, and like it was like it's just a dog, it's dog. And my one uncle, I remember my one uncle, he was asking me one time about who I was dating, and I said something about I was dating a guy who I said, yeah, I'm dating this so and so again. And he says, again? And I said, yeah. He said, if a dog circles back, you shoot it. And I just sat there like with that, like, I don't understand. He says, apparently he don't understand his job. So if he circles back, you shoot him. And I thought, oh, okay. So from calling dogs dog to circle back and shoot it, I was like thinking to myself, like, this is interesting, right? But I didn't have a framework to put this stuff in. It was just stuff. It was just stuff. And until you have the ability to take this stuff and put it into something, you don't really understand it. So so yesterday when I had my epiphany moment, it was putting that into context. And remember, I was telling you about my feelings about people being slick, right? It could be that I'm associating a thought or a memory. This could be my grandmother's stuff, right? With particular people or energies that folks carry with them that says, yeah, nope, right? Yeah, don't even think about it. Because I am quick. I am quick to say no, right? So so yeah, so that kind of so this kind of stuff here is stuff that helps me to put pieces of the puzzle together. That is not to say that I think that I have been wrong in my assessment, but it helps me to understand why I summarily dismiss certain energies that I come in contact with.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and our assessments, I don't think that they're wrong in the moment.
Yeah.
If you have an assessment and it needs to be changed, it's because you've gotten more information. But based on the information before me, that is the right assessment
Mhm.
until I get different information. Like, it's not wrong.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times my grandmother's experience may inform the choices that I make, and really send up a red flag. There was this guy
Mm.
that I dated for a minute. Anyway, I had gone with him to a wedding that was out of town. Oh, it was actually just in Akron, but we had gone to a wedding. And so we stayed at a hotel that night. And we stayed at the hotel in Akron. And when I was coming back, um, when we got ready to leave, my car wouldn't start. Oh,
Mm.
car would not start. And so I asked him to, whatever, I think I did some stuff with my car. I don't remember if I had it towed or if I was going to have somebody go back the next day and get it with me. But I asked him to drop me off at church because I needed to go to church. I was, doing something in the church. I don't know if that was when I was on the board or something, but I needed to be at church. So I asked him to drop me off at church. And so as I got out, I said, I get out of here at 1:30. So if you could pick me up. And he looks at me and he was like, oh no, he was like, Sunday is my day. And I was like, I'm sorry, what does that mean? And he was like, can't you find somebody else to pick you up? And I'm thinking, why should I? I mean, I was about ready to, we was about to go to blows in the parking lot for me. I was like, why should I? He was like, because Sunday is my day. Girl, I think that was the very last time I talked to that man. Was it or was it after he dropped me off at my house? I'm not sure, but that was it. That was like, yep, done, you're done. Stick a fork, you're done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if you can, I mean, so wrapping my mind around what happened to my grandmother, and juxtapose it up against something like, I can't rely on you to do something simple for me like that. Like, dude, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're not even an option.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think everybody has their stuff, but where does it come from? And
The
whether or
magic question.
yeah, and whether or not we sit in an energy or a space where we try to like I don't ever feel like I have to and this may be wrong of me, but I don't argue people into relationships.
Hmm.
I don't do that. I
So
don't.
why would you imagine that would be wrong?
What would be wrong?
To not argue people into relationships.
Oh, because people, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with making that choice. I mean, it's so
What I'm
much
saying
more
is
free.
I don't try to convince people that they need to be a particular way or do a particular thing. If it's not in what they already want to do, I don't sit there and, argue with you over that stuff. It just, to me, it just seems like um you're bound to argue for the rest of your life over
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Show
I
up because you
agree.
want to show up,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a desire, because you care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just dog number 3.
Mm.
I'm it's yeah, it just and I hate to even put that out there like that, but it's when you treat everybody indiscriminately, for all I know, that could have been that could be how people see their children as well. Like George Foreman, just name everybody George. It's like, what is that? I don't know. I don't know.
It
I
would
mean,
be interesting to find out what that is like for them. I mean,
yeah,
and I know they're not the only people on the planet that have that experience, but I would be very curious to know what that experience is like um for them. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of patterns that I discovered long time before even becoming an MFT. But patterns that were in my family, how we did relationships and connections all the way back to slavery and the things that happened and the patterns that happen in our lives, from rapes to child, the age everybody has their first child. And it's just powerful. But to learn that it's not just the information that I gleaned from my mom and my grandma, but it's dead people.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and it still informs the decisions that we make. And so we're talking here about breaking cycles, breaking chains, things like that. So anyway, so after we talked about Jesse yesterday, Jesse's story was really like the first, like, so pivotal, because it made me think like, oh my gosh, this is his great uncle. So even, sometimes we have this supposition that, oh, if I don't have children, then I don't have to worry about passing on this stuff. But his great uncle died at an early age, and his great uncle's issues was what was vexing
Mm-hmm.
Jesse in when he turned 19, and caused his life to spin out of control until he figured out what was going on. But figuring out what's going on is just the beginning. So being able to pay attention to the words, connect it to a story, and then there is still work to do after
It's
that.
the work to do. Yeah.
Yeah, finding out is amazing. Finding out is it sets us on a particular path, but it's just the beginning of the path. So or do I want to say, I don't want to say the very beginning, but it's pretty close to the beginning. Yeah. So what's interesting though is that here he says that in an attempt to explain stories such as Jesse, he says scientists have identified biological markers, evidence that traumas can be and are passed down from generation to generation. So he starts to talk about this woman, Rachel Yehuda, who is a professor at a university in New York. And she is doing some amazing research around epigenetics and PTSD, and more specifically around Holocaust survivors and their children. And so in her research, what she found is that cortisol, let me get it right. In particular, the stress hormone that helps our bodies to return to normal after it experiences trauma. She says that it affects the brain function, and she has revolutionized how we understand the treatment of PTSD worldwide. So as Stephanie pointed out yesterday, PTSD is when you're having an episode, you are experiencing it as if you are in the trauma at the time the trauma occurred. So say for instance, a person who has wartime trauma, they hear a car backfire. It's not that they think of themselves as walking down Central, right? They think of themselves back in the
body response. Yeah, back in the desert or what have you.
Yes. And so that's the reaction. And so it is really trying to then find place again, right? Where am I? What's happening here? And so she talks about this, about the sensations around that. And so she said that she found that children of people who, whether they were Holocaust survivors or people who had been at war, the children, their offsprings, were born with low levels of cortisol in their system.
Mm-hmm.
And those low levels of cortisol, where people used to think that there would be higher levels of cortisol, these low level of cortisols in their system became really problematic. And so the way that they, and it says in cases of chronic PTSD, cortisol production can become suppressed, right? Mm-hmm. So this is, if it's what allows you to find your balance, but now it is suppressed. These low levels measures in both, now these are in both the children and in the survivor. And because they have low levels of cortisol, they have a harder time with the trauma that they experience in their own life, in their generation, because they don't have enough to right themselves.
And to protect them, to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And become,
Right. So
you're not clear about the move I should make. Everything becomes, yes. And it affects the entire family system. I have a couple of clients in that work, and it's not just the one person. They present with one person, but it's the entire family system that doesn't know how to balance. And so consequently, in my opinion and in my experience, is that we make up a lot of rules to regulate. And there's a lot of rules that comes with that culture, as in our culture too, because we don't have the natural biological ability to self-regulate. So we create rules, or what we would call boundaries. Mm-hmm. And we use those as checkoff points because we're not able to get those inner knowings like we learned in the book about the anatomy of the spirit, because we don't get those. So we create these. That's what, the work of PTSD is cognitive behavioral therapy, because we got to create this strategy so that we know, and then try to learn to build up the feelings to go with it. But can you just imagine, and then there's the judgments, because if you don't follow the rules, now I get to judge you. And it's such a crazy cycle, but yeah.
And so when you see stuff like this, there is things like, people talk about walking on eggshells, because that is what it feels like. If that's how the atmosphere that is constructed so that we don't set a person off,
Right.
then that becomes the coping mechanism. But who wants to be
Oh,
subject always walking on eggshells? It's, how do we find out how to do the work? But now on the flip side of this is where the problem with drugs and addiction also come in.
mhm.
Because when you cannot self-regulate, you figure out ways by whatever necessary to numb or to um
To feel,
yeah,
because low cortisol can have you feel kind of down in the dumps for no reason. And so then people will, drink or use anything just so they can feel something. Or a lot of people use sex just
yeah,
so I can feel something, but yeah, it doesn't mean anything in this space right here. This region of our body system, it doesn't register. Like they don't, the head and heart, head and heart or mind and heart coherence, it's not there, it's not solid. And then we're in this, get in this cycle of I call it self-medicating, everybody calls it self-medicating, from
mhm,
drugs, sex, studying. I feel like I am a professional student to keep my cortisol. The more I learn, the more happy I feel. So I'm
mhm,
always in learning, 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 learning.
mhm.
I know that that's my thing. I know that that is how I manage
Yeah, I got another
my
girlfriend.
trauma.
I got another girlfriend that's like that, who collects degrees like other people collect, trophies. I mean, it's just what she does, because that's how she deals with her feelings about herself. And she knows this. That's the funny thing is sometimes we self-identify that we know it, and yet we do it anyway.
Well, it's not that, well,
Because
as far as I'm concerned, I enjoy learning.
yeah,
It helps me to just stay balanced. When life is going bizarre, I'll grab a book, and it doesn't have to be technical learning either. I'll just, like, I could just read. I can read something that feels good. Where most people want to sit in front of a television, I rather read something, and
right.
it's my thing. I could go away in 3 days and just read.
So, but like, so reading is wonderful, right? Reading is, of course, on the spectrum. We would think that this is a place of, yes, desire. This is a good thing. But if the way of coping was either drugs and alcohol, or put it on the other side of the spectrum, what we call self-mutilation,
Right,
then
self-harming.
yeah, then I got another girlfriend who, whenever something in her life did not go right, she didn't self-mutilate like some people do. They talk about it like cutting themselves or burning themselves. She didn't
Pulling
do
the
it that
hair
way.
out.
She didn't do it that way. What she did is she went and got her another tattoo, or she got another piercing, or it was always something, but she had people who she'd go to inflict pain on herself.
That's what I think tattoos are. No disrespect and no judgment, but I've always believed that. And it was confirmed to me when my uncle was murdered, and I wanted to go get a tattoo. I wanted to have a tattoo, and I don't believe in tattoos, and I'm not anti-tattoos. I just realized that tattoos can represent self-pain. It's self-harming, and I knew, I was aware of this before school, um, and it was confirmed to me in 2009 when my uncle was murdered, and I instantly was like, I want to get a tattoo on my arm. I
Yeah.
knew it. I instantly knew that that's what it was. The pain was so intense that I
Mm-hmm.
needed it to be on the other side of me instead of inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that's good. When part of this consciousness is the first step sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we can always control it. But I remember this one friend that I was talking about, because of her professional life, somebody finally said to her, you know what, what she was starting to do was starting to bleed into other areas. So if you get tats, it's one thing to just, have something that you can cover up and go into the business world. But when they start crawling up your neck and your face or your chest and all of that stuff, people are like, they're saying, wait 1 second. There is a level of the professionalism that we desire here in the office. And yes, people do at some point start to speak to the behavior, because what before was something that just seemed like it was private that you did for yourself, now all of a sudden turns into more than that. It becomes more problematic.
And I think that, we're on the subject, but I desire that people would pay attention, because I am not saying that everybody that has a tattoo is, self-harming, blah, blah, blah. Some people just want it because they want the experience, and that is true. However, I challenge all people, because I see the patterns. I see the patterns of people who are tatted. And if I know a little bit of their life story, it just, certain things make sense. So just paying attention to the motives, because like we started off saying, our unconscious selves, the body will respond. You do this so quick because you look away, before you know it, you're rubbing your face. And then you don't realize until there's a blister that you've been rubbing that same spot for months, not even acknowledging that something is happening there. And so if that is a thing that you are doing, piercing, self-harm, tattooing, I just say, ask the question before you get the next one. Just ask the question. It's okay to just, is it possible that I'm doing this to handle some internal stuff?
Yeah.
Especially because we got to cover them up to work.
Right.
Not like we walking around like we in Florida every day with everything showing everywhere. We got to, most companies are getting really lax about it. I mean, Progressive used to be cover up, but you don't have to cover them up now. So a lot of companies are becoming lax about the tattoos, because it's just a way now. But I ask that that we just pay attention.
Yeah, consider. Yeah. So she so as he goes through this, he says the research demonstrated that people who have been through some type of PTSD are 3 times more likely to experience symptoms of PTSD if one of our parents have experienced PTSD as a result of something that they have gone through. Or you're likely to suffer from depression or some type of anxiety if one of your parents has experienced a traumatic, something traumatic. So she believes that this type of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, is inherited rather than occurring from our own being exposed to our parents' stories or their ordeals. So if, say, for instance, just that, if your parent has been through a traumatic experience, you have a heightened, because it may lower your cortisol, your own cortisol, you have a heightened, how am I saying this? Your likelihood of experiencing PTSD yourself is heightened.
Yeah,
because your parents had
the risk is definitely increased greater. Why? Yeah. And why wouldn't it be? The reality is that you're probably going to experience the PTSD experience from your parent, because the parent is always in self-correction mode. And a lot of times we self-correct, we do the damage. Abusers abuse. People who have been abused will turn around after getting out of an abusive place and then abuse their kids, because there's a thing that happens that abusers will, the abusee will then abuse if they're gone unchecked, if they don't do the work that they need to heal to find out what's happening. So if I come into a journey with PTSD, then there's something in my narrative, behaviors in me, that then lends itself to my child, even in not only just in the DNA, but my behaviors. I then live a life, like you've heard the story of the little rabbit that was always afraid, because his family taught him to, you have to always be afraid, run away, run away, run away. And so every little thing he ran away, because that's what we do. We're rabbits. We have to run away.
So like, say for instance, from the perspective or from the story that I shared about me, right? My dad, because of his experience with his father, he used to talk about this too. He said that he swore he would never do that to his family. So he was a family guy, almost to the exclusion of and this is funny about my father. I used to kind of comment, because my dad was not the type to have a lot of friends. As a matter of fact, he might treat people kind of like his father did, with not knowing anybody's name. You could be, if we were to use the scenario of dog, it was like, if you weren't in his family, it was almost like he didn't have time for you. So my dad was loyal and family centric almost to a fault, right? So from his trauma, it wasn't as if we felt like he then therefore abused any of us. There wasn't that type of thing. But what it does do is, like, for me, I wasn't traumatized by my dad.
Okay.
Like, but what I did feel was this, you remember how I always talk about how my dad, it was so important that I get married. Why can't you get married? You need to find you a husband. You need this, you need that, blah, 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 blah. So I think that there was a lot of stuff that he was putting on me, that was probably as a result of how he saw things. So I guess what I'm saying is that we don't have to look at it as if it is the traditional abuse kind
Yes,
of.
I'm glad you were saying that, because I'm like, come on, because right.
Yeah, we don't have to look at it from that perspective. We could just look at the stuff that has come out of what we have been exposed to, and then understand our actions based on what our individual experiences are.
Because that one person's behavior has, let's just take your grandfather's, one person's behavior has impacted 9 lives. And
way more than 9.
Right. I'm only talking about your father's known siblings in his house, but so when your dad comes along now, his fears, his beliefs, his judgments have to then become manifested in his offspring. And that happens. And so we are transferring the fears and the angst and the judgments, and we imagine that I'm not like him, so I'm better, different. But really, the reality is that some aspect of who his father was your father. Whatever it was, I don't know, but
Right.
uncovering that. And so it comes out on your children or your partner because you're suppressing, you're trying to hold in this, I'm not going to be like him. I'm not going to be like him. And you know how many millions of times he probably looked in the mirror and was like, damn, that sounds like my father right there. that
Well,
sound like,
I think that birth order too matters, right? My father was older. He was one of the older ones of his siblings, right?
mm,
So perspective on all of that based on his birth order too, would influence how he saw things. I had
mhm,
another friend of mine who I talked about a while back ago, whose father walked into a wedding reception, saw a woman, left his wife and kids for that woman, and spent the rest of his life with this woman that he had just met, right? And so one of the things that he said is that my siblings, because they were younger, they didn't understand or didn't have dad around when they were in their, like, when they were younger, so they had a lot of anger towards him that the older kids were like, so still saw him as daddy, not as their abandoned,
yeah,
you know
yeah, that's
so
good.
this birth order and the perspective where people fall at really matters. So what
Mm-hmm.
my dad may have seen may be totally different than what his younger siblings saw or thought about their
Mm-hmm.
father.
Mm-hmm.
So for each of us, we all bring to the table our own perspective.
Yes. And
And
what we want to call it, Sandra. Some people call it as normal. Some people say that was traumatic.
but it's still a perspective. We
It
we all
is.
come with our own way of seeing things,
Yes.
of what, whether it's normal or whether it is something that is, that is harmful or whatever. We all come with our own way of seeing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so if from, say, for instance, my dad, like I said, we made a pilgrimage every year, right? It wasn't, when you saw my father with his father, I think my dad just came across as the dutiful, loving son that went down every year because that was what we did. And whether it was them going out in the field to work or us just as a family spending that time together, it was just that. So I didn't even have the perspective that there should have been something amiss or something wrong growing up,
That makes sense.
right? I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did know is that when his siblings came for different stuff from all over the place, I know that their relationships with their grandfather, if they had seen him or spent time with him, was different from mine because it was something that we did every single year. I mean, you know, so so I recognize that all of us have a different way of seeing exactly the same thing, just
Mm-hmm.
based on our vantage point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's something that I guess that all of us can take into consideration and see how that works. See how that feels.
Yeah. So like if somebody says, oh, my parents, they weren't fair all the way around. I don't know. Today, I want to challenge anybody to look at it different. Find out more. Find out more about that. If they treated you different, find out more about that because there could be evolutions that could be happening. There could have been an awakening from the firstborn to the third one or the fourth. There's there's different things that happen, but the trauma is still there. It's just I guess I'm saying that to say that the PTSD can be passed down, and it doesn't look like what your parents experienced. It can look way different, and it's still an impact on the next generation. There is an impact that happens.
So I guess I'm okay, so I guess I'm a little confused about the way you kind of said that. I don't know why.
I don't know.
Yeah, because when you go from saying that they didn't treat us fair to I guess it's the good morning, Terry.
Good morning.
To the way that I guess I was a little
It'll come back if I'm supposed to say it again. I apologize for the confusion.
It's no big deal. I guess I was because immediately, remember, I was telling you that I knew my sister and I were treated totally different, right? And she was the oldest. And I felt like she got a lot more attention and was treated totally different than I. But I don't know that, so it could be, it could be several things. It could be that she was the firstborn. And firstborns, first grandchild can tend to be more spoiled, but it could be a whole lot of things. It could be that she was a lot cuter than I was. It could be that she was a lot more girly than I was, because I was tomboyish, I was headstrong, I was, a middle child. There could be a number of reasons that contributed to that. Not all of them could be attributed to I guess the PTSD
traumas.
It could be a lot of different things.
So
I guess that's why I was kind of like trying to understand. Yeah, I was just trying to, and I had a brother that was really, thinking that he was treated much worse. And we were thinking,
remember that? Yeah.
He was always thinking that he was treated so much better,
Wow.
But he had the perception that he was treated worse. And my perception, or our perception, his siblings' perception is like, somebody bought your first car. We all had to work for ours, right? Somebody, gave you this, and we had to do that. And somebody did, and it was always like he was always in the mode of complaining, which the squeaky wheel gets the oil. But he was always in the mode of complaining, and they were always in the mode of proving. And so that became, the way that all of that stuff worked. But, whatever. I got minds to deal with.
This is good.
So yes, tomorrow we get to come back after we have talked about this Rachel Yehuda and the research that she's done, and tomorrow we get to talk about Gretchen and Gretchen's Gretchen stuff. So I think that these stories are helpful because they help us to look at our own circumstances, just like Jesse did. This will carry it a little bit further down the rabbit hole, or to show us how all of this,
some more clear, more clarity.
Terry says, I felt that I was always in the view, so fire rained down on me. PTSD is real. Yeah, and he was always in view. Does that mean that I ran into this man, me and Jayla, a couple of weeks ago. We were going in for breakfast, and this guy said, one of those people who just seems like he needed to say something. And he said something about he was limping, and he said, I'm ex-Navy SEAL, and when I find the guy who broke my leg, I'm gonna kill him. And I was thinking, like, oh, okay, you do that. That's kind of like how I was like, okay, because I was thinking to myself, how do you break your leg in the first place then? Right?
Was he joking around?
How you gonna kill him? I don't know. But then he says, I went to, and he named this school. It was a Montessori school. I went to such and such a school. And he says, and you know why I got kicked out? And I said, no, I don't. Right? No, I don't. He says, because I deserved it. And I said, oh, okay. And so as I'm grabbing the door handle of the restaurant and we're about to go in, he asked the question. He says, you know why I got kicked out of the Navy? And me and my niece both looked at each other, and he says, because I deserved it. and I was like, all right, have a great day, right? So as me and my niece were waiting on the table, I said, it's nice to feel like you get exactly what you deserve in life rather than something else, right? Rather than feeling as if you didn't deserve it. It's nice to feel like you got or you earned exactly what you deserve. And that was what his little sharing said to me, was that he knew that whatever he did rose to the level of where he would be kicked out, but not everybody comes to that same awareness.
Right. That was good.
So when Terry says that he was always in the view, in view, it's like, okay, not that he didn't deserve it, but he was always in view. So fire rained down on him. So yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this.
Yes.
This was good. If you came in at the tail end of that Greek, go back and watch from the beginning. Because once we got past our little chit chat moment, and even our chit chat is good to me, it's purposeful. But once we get past our chit chat moment, it just we get our teeth in this book, and it's good.
It is very, very, very good.
Yes. Good. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for
being here. Thank you, ma'am. Enjoy the remainder of your day.
Wonderful Wednesday. Is it
wonderful Wednesday? It is. My grandbaby is in surgery right now, and I am like standing in high vibe on the doctor's behalf, on her behalf, and just asking, like, angels would talk to her, tell her, send her messages for me while she's in anesthesia. I just been saying little things, and just been in just complete imagining that I am in complete connection with her right now. Like there's no separation between us.
Yes. Amen. Yes. All right. So knowing all is well with Sandra.
All is well. Yes. Yes.
Well. Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So blessings to each
blessings to everyone. Yes.
And we will be here tomorrow, 7:30-ish. 30-ish. And yes, and so have an amazing day. Don't look away from this, right?
Please don't look away.
Yeah, if you've got something, think about, even if you start just collecting stories and having conversations around the stories, I think that this is so pivotal in helping you to understand and as we talk about how to then rectify, or not even sometimes there's awareness that we need, but then let's talk about taking it a step further. What does that
Yeah. How do I make this be, if we're seeds and we're being broken open, how do we use this to fertilize and nurture ourselves and grow and sprout and do the stuff that we're supposed to do with this information? If not, we got to wait for another generation to come and then do the work again. So yeah, like, just
yeah.
don't look away. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
All
Interesting.
right.
All right.
Have a fabulous day.
Yes, thank you. All right, so yeah, I am Alpha here as well, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your spirit being here. Ruth, I saw you, and I thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will be back tomorrow to talk and to get a little deeper into this whole work. It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, and just such a fabulous, fabulous exploration deeper into who we are. All right. So I love you. Sending out blessings and all that good stuff to you. Yeah, good vibes, good vibes. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow. See ya.